I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Richard Hell from Oliver Wyman. Richard joins us from Germany, where he leads the manufacturing practice at Oliver Wyman. Usually, Richard can be found spending time with senior manufacturing leaders, helping guide them through large digital transformation projects. To improve processes and reduce costs, he brings his expertise both from himself and also of his organisation. We're really grateful he can share some of those insights with us today.
Well, welcome everybody, and my topic today is the state of manufacturing. And let me assure you that where we are today across the globe on manufacturing is not of anyone would have expected a couple of years ago. So plenty of effects have, well, at least hit our strategy, have influenced the way going forward, and are certainly the kind of challenges we need to deal with today. Let me list out a few of those which have a fundamental impact on where we stand today and where we need to go in the next couple of years to stay competitive with our manufacturing environments. There's definitely really kind of list the most prominent one with COVID-19 and what we have lived through, while it is in the crisis situation in the last, well, it is 1.5, almost 2 years now, which clearly led to, while it is to rapid changes in production volume and massive supply chain disruptions, which even now where manufacturing and our normal operations going to get more used to the ups and downs and really kind of volumes and challenges, the supply chain disruption is clearly there. There was another effect, which was a change in consumer behavior, which we haven't expected, that all of a sudden some industries were faced with significant drops in volumes. Other, like, for example, consumer electronic had an all-time high in demands from people working from home offices, having more time, spending on really kind of somehow consumer electronics and things like that. And then last but not least, what we also not were used to before the COVID crisis was the situation that all of a sudden we had labor shortages and a lot of uncertainties, and still living in an environment where the number of people being really kind of sick, being out, being quarantined is significantly beyond in what a well-oiled machine on the manufacturing environment was used to. However, independent from COVID and the effect, there is also somehow the end of globalization, or at least the globalization as we were used to in the last couple of years, with a lot of trade wars and unpredictable tariffs between the various different really kind of countries in the world, increasing really kind of protectionism from some of our really kind of countries where we used to sell products or used to really kind of import products, which is leading to rapid changes in legislations, also really kind of challenging the manufacturing environment. And last but not least, we have seen in the last couple of years an increasing vulnerability towards regional catastrophic events, which certainly have brought our entire global idea and global supply chain into some difficult situations. And this is not just since we confronted with COVID. It started really kind of much, much earlier with Fukushima and a couple of other things which had a severe impact on our manufacturing strategy. And then last but not least, I want to also point to, while it is climate and sustainability, the whole discussion on decarbonization, on carbon-free, CO2-free really kind of environments. One of the effects is clearly for the automotive industry, but also for aerospace and others, the push towards e-mobility and really kind of hydrogen as one of our sources for, well, it is the fuel sources we need to deal with. And last but not least, also really kind of particular in the last couple of days, as we have seen that environmental friendliness is a buying criteria, as well as it becomes more and more a criteria for investors in looking at really kind of how companies are performing and what the company strategies are towards really kind of climate and sustainability. So all over, significant changes, which this goes without saying, do have a quite severe impact on our manufacturing strategies and what companies need to deal with. So that results clearly into some internal challenges we are hearing in all our conversations with clients in automotive, in general manufacturing, in aerospace, more and more loudly in the last really kind of this couple of months. And if I can start on the left side, the entire topic on complexity, where we do see that there is still really kind of an increasing rate of complexity coming purely from new technology and all the challenges which are going along with those technology changes in the industry. Increasing number of variations and variants of products as well as process. I talked in my earlier slide of e-mobility, just really kind of look from an automotive perspective, that all of a sudden you produce the same vehicle as an ICE, as really kind of an hybrid and a fully really kind of battery electrical vehicle. So that alone has a massive impact on the number of variants you need to handle in a manufacturing environment. And last but not least on that complexity topic, I like to call out the independencies between systems, component, and really kind of also peripheral systems, which are increasingly making really kind of our life complex. That results into the new theme of manufacturing on a more resilient environment. And what that means in detail, if we really kind of dive a level below, clearly means a new manufacturing strategy, moving to more flexible manufacturing concepts, which are able to adapt just really kind of much quicker to changes in the marketplace. And that can be really kind of increasing or decreasing volumes. This could also be a change in really kind of your manufacturing programs. Certainly, I think the world was confronted with a situation which forced us to rethink those manufacturing strategy, which we have optimized over the years and years and years, and really kind of geared towards consistent really kind of volume, while it is output, which are not there anymore. On the supplier ecosystem side, resilience clearly means in redefining your make versus buy, in rethinking every cornerstone, in whether you're going to put it in your own manufacturing plants, whether you're going to buy it, how you're going to change on that environment in order to reduce purely the vulnerability on supply chain disruptions, which are making all our lives significantly more complicated in the last decade here. And last but not least, there's another trend which feeds into that resilient manufacturing demand or really kind of ask from our clients and top management, which purely has to do with your workforce. We clearly need to adapt to changing skill requirements coming from technologies, coming from a higher level of digitalization. And last but not least, also an effect which we're going to see, particularly with the new generation, which actually really kind of starts coming in our manufacturing lives, which definitely have a different work-life quality aspects, which are important to them and need to be considered as we define our future manufacturing strategies. And last but not least, there is the everlasting topic of efficiency, which I do think really kind of gets under growing pressure and growing concern purely from the fact that all those investments which needs to be made from our companies in that technology change and in a fundamental really kind of this different, let's say, technology generation costs a lot of money and needs to be financed by demanding really kind of higher efficiencies and really kind of cost savings in the current environment. There is another effect which clearly really kind of has to do with the fact to stay competitive in a market where we're going to find really kind of new incumbent players, particularly while it is all our guests today on the automotive environment. I do think we are confronted with companies who never actually were seen on the automotive horizon and all of a sudden coming into discussion in also start building car, whether that are consumer electronic companies like Apple, like really kind of Foxconn, which certainly talking today to build vehicles, or other constellations, certainly having no heritage, having no really kind of list somehow large baggage of investments which they need to afford, certainly can produce much, much more efficient and much, much cheaper in a sense, which we all need to quality deal with. And last but not least, we need to absorb the overshoots of those increasing number of product launches, which we clearly are seeing in the last couple of months. And if we're going to qualities project that in to the year 2022, 2023, we still have a massive amount of launches of new vehicles and also really kind of new aircrafts, particularly if you're talking, look at the environment of VTOLs and really kind of city taxis and all the new way of transportation, which certainly really kind of is new to the market. So what does that quality somehow mean in terms of considering really kind of to accelerate the transition? There is certainly one thing which is present really kind of all the time, but from my perspective is coming more and more important, and that is the reduction of complexity. So standardizing offers from what you're going to put on the market, what you're going to offer to the clients, but particularly also rethinking how you're going to really kind of design products and put that theme of design for manufacturability and assembly much, much more in the center of what you're going to do. There is a second element around really kind of manufacturing concepts in dealing with the challenge of existing really kind of manufacturing concepts, adjusting towards that increasing number of variants and certainly really kind of constant decreasing or increasing volumes, which needs to be really kind of accelerated from a transition perspective. My third point would be refining your supplier ecosystem, adapting to qualities the change in value creation in your tier N supplier ecosystem, where you're going to see a shift from what usually was done from the large really kind of tier one and all that really kind of center of gravity was focused there to a much, much more really kind of wider dispersed qualities tier N environment you need to deal with, and you probably really kind of also need to put it in a perspective of a change in terms of global reach, suppliers becoming more regional instead of being really kind of single source suppliers which just existed one time in the world. And last but not least, there is the theme of a consequent digitalization, which certainly will help significantly to accelerate the transformation, which means learning to leverage those digital technologies, digital tools, as one of the core capabilities which allow you to continuously really kind of optimize your environment. Again, here the shift from more conventional ways in efficiency increase and efficiency optimization activities to doing that much, much more in the digital space, which allows us to get actually to new heights, to a new watershed of opportunities, which we haven't actually really kind of being able to leverage so far. So I wanted to leave you with that couple of thoughts. It's certainly a very interesting environment for all of us in the manufacturing space. I think it is a challenging environment which forces us to rethink a lot of qualities of our old common really kind of thoughts and thought models and concepts. But on the other hand, it gives us an opportunity in just really kind of adjusting our manufacturing strategy, discussing, adjusting our activities and get to the next plateau of productivity, just being fit for the future. With that, Stephen, I want to hand back to you.
Richard, thanks again for spending the time with us. That was great for you to talk us through those thoughts. I'm really interested to know, how much of what you've shared today is new from, say, 1 year ago versus, what are you expecting to be talking to people about perhaps 1 year from now? It seems like a lot of change happening quite quickly.
Yes, definitely, Stephen. And first and foremost, I think that concept of resilient manufacturing is really kind of new to all of us. And I think we're still grasping in what it really means in all its different facets and fashions. But we're clearly walking away from volume optimized, very, really kind of rigid manufacturing concepts and structures, which weren't probably really kind of able to deal with all the changes from a volume perspective, complexity perspective. So this is what we painfully had to learn, that that world seems to be really kind of a world of the past, and meanwhile, nobody believes that this is coming back. So we all need to understand that better for us what it means. We all need to really kind of rethink in what does that mean, for example, the line to the line design you're going to use. What does it mean for the level of digitalization you're going to use in the plant? And what does it ultimately also mean in how you manage and control your manufacturing environment?
That's interesting. So, do you find that people are thinking fundamentally differently now when they're looking at the future and starting planning for new transformational type projects? Are they starting from a completely different place?
Yeah, I do feel that, Steve, that this is a change in the way how people really kind of approaching the topics. I do think we had to learn that um, our old really kind of model came to an end almost overnight as we finally really kind of went into the COVID-19 crisis and companies were struggling for survival. I think it forced us to think more radically. I think it made it clear to us that the old world is a story of the past, but also in terms of really kind of some other elements, like for example, digitalization. I even see that COVID-19 was probably really kind of the biggest trigger point, the biggest accelerator we could have hoped for in a certain sense, because now really kind of at least after about it is our months in spending in home offices instead of really kind of being at our desk in an engineering center, in a manufacturing center, out really kind of in the field, we all developed a new way in handling and using and leveraging digital technology. And I feel that that might gonna give us also that really kind of new element of new concepts, gives us really kind of all the push for trying out really kind of new things, which probably really kind of 2 years ago would have been mission impossible. So I think the virtual concept, which we all learned to adapt and we all really kind of learned to optimize for ourselves, will have a fundamental impact on the way how we're managing and the way how we're building really kind of manufacturing systems, manufacturing environments in the future as well. So in hindsight, I need to say that with all really kind of the sadness and all really kind of the tragedy around COVID-19, it probably also really kind of was the trigger point we needed to go to more radical concepts for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad we've had this trigger point, as you say, that's driven some more interesting transformational activity. And actually, I also welcome getting back to the old normal where we can actually meet face to face, and perhaps next time we can do this in person together. But I want to thank you again for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.